prosecution may call its next witness.
Certainly, Your Honor. Before we do, we would like to read from the previous testimony of Zane Gray. We have spoken with counsel before these proceedings, and they have stipulated to Zane Gray being tendered as an expert witness in the fields of bloodstain and blood spatter analysis. At this time, we ask for my co-counsel to step into the well, sit on the stand. I will read the questions, he will read the answers, just to place this in a context for the jury.
And does the defense have an objection to this reading of the procedure?
No, Your Honor. The defense just requests for clarification of what the defense wants read into the record after the prosecution has read into the record what they have chosen.
And let me make sure I understand the procedure that you're envisioning. Do you plan to read the questions yourself, or are you requesting that the prosecution read previously identified sections?
It was our understanding with the prosecution that there are portions that the prosecution will be reading into the record that the defense also wishes to read into the record, but we would just like to clarify afterwards, after they have finished reading, what lines in particular the defense wants read into the record for our case.
I think that works, and just make sure that I'm on the same page. So that if I understand the prosecution is you'll be reading all of those, but at the end you'll identify those that the defense also requested. Is that correct?
But I believe that when we spoke with counsel beforehand, the portions we were reading were the portions that they intended to read. I believe Ms. Jones is referring to if we don't read part of it, that she would be allowed to, and of course we have no objection.
And Ms. Jones, is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
That will work. In that case, you may proceed.
May I approach the highlighted version of the portion we will be reading, Your Honor?
You may.
We will be starting at the top of page 106. And we will be reading only the highlighted portions on this page. Question. Based on your examination of the real and photographic evidence, what, if any, opinion did you reach within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to the relative distance between the Sig Sauer P220 .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol and the victim's head when the fatal shot was fired?
The distance was about 1.5 feet, give or take.
Could you determine the relative positions of the shooter and the victim when the fatal shot was fired?
The shooter was behind the victim.
Can you tell if the victim was upright, laying down, or in some other position when the fatal shot was fired?
Hard to say, but given the relative paucity of blood on the gun, the small amount of blood on the sleeve, and the absence of any blood on the shooter's hands, plus the fact that back spatter will travel faster and farther backwards and sideways rather than straight up in the air and backwards, which is against gravity, I would say that it's more likely that the victim was face down than standing up at the time the fatal shot was fired.
Is there any indication that the fatal bullet traveled through the ski cap that is on his head that you see there in the picture?
No, as you can see, the entry wound is below the flap of the mask, and the blood flow from the wound to the side of the face is also below mask level.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I just want to verify, Ms. Jones, was there any additional portions that you wanted read as well?
No, the defense would just like the record to reflect that for our case in chief, we would like read into the record pages 106, lines 1 through 6. I do believe prosecution read that into the record.
All right. With that then, in that agreement, we'll go ahead and go to the people's next witness.